Fantasy disc golf's tough, man. I swapped 3 people on my team before this tournament. A lot of people are not playing Idlewild.
Yeah. 39?
39.
Is that 30? Yeah, it's 39. Ricky was 38.
Yep. The mini-sode.
Welcome in, champions. Good to see you. There's a lot of things I want to talk about, but I do just sort of want to keep this into this little 30-minute type of deal that we're doing.
Sure.
I think people appreciate that. I know our view length isn't very long, so people seem to click in, hear what they want to hear, and get out, which is great. If we added some graphics or we added some other things, we'd probably get people to stay a little longer. But,
more so disc flights and actual outdoor activities.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, that too. And I was just thinking from downloading, you see like these other YouTube channels that have downloaded action from the week's tournament.
Oh, right.
And it makes it a lot easier to watch, and then they talk over it.
For sure.
Right?
That's really smart.
It's smart. It's how much time you have in your life.
Yeah.
To download stuff and to do all that sort of editing. And this is a fun thing that we do. It's kind of a hobby, so we appreciate anyone that wants to hang around and just listen to us chat. But I wanted to bring up Gannon Buhr right out of the gate.
Yeah, the kid's a killer.
The kid's a killer, and what I'm most impressed with is him not being satisfied on anything that he does.
He does want more, doesn't he?
Yeah, you would just, if you were just to judge his demeanor and not look at the score, you would think he's somewhere in the middle of the pack.
Yeah,
because he's out. He just
right.
Perfection. He's looking for that perfection. And if you're a disc golfer and you're trying to make a living on the tour and you're playing against him, I would be incredibly worried about that, because he's winning and he's not feeling his best. It's like Tiger Woods in the early 2000s. When he would say, it's either my A game or my B game. And it seems to me like Gannon's got more of the B game right now in his mind than he does A game. He hasn't come out and said that exactly to us, but that's sort of his body language.
Yeah.
And if you're a disc golfer, I would be incredibly worried about that. Because the kid's finding ways to win, and he doesn't have his best stuff in his head. Some of his releases and so on. So I'll let you.
Well, I'll take a counterpoint just to say, like, golf has a lot of ups and downs. All these pros hit their stride and they have a lot of momentum and they're going to be winning or hitting the peak of their game. We haven't really seen a lull out of him yet. He only just started on tour last year, the year before. He might have made an appearance when he was a kid.
And that's sort of my point. I don't think there is a lull in him. I think that's what everyone should be worried about, is that his ability to play, when you're golfing, for instance, I go out onto a golf course and some days I could just hit perfect draws all day long, just automatic perfect draws. I could count on it. I know my body was just working that way that day, and I would work with that.
Yep.
I wouldn't fight it.
I feel that stride in disc golf.
Exactly the same thing. It translates to other sports. But then those days you get on the golf course and that automatic draw all of a sudden is this fade. It's all of a sudden everything wants to go left, right, or it's more inconsistent, or it's hooking more, or it's something different.
Like, what did I do different this week?
You have to adjust in the moment.
Yes. During
a tournament, and it's incredibly hard to do. Not a lot of people can do it. And I don't know if it's reps. I don't know if it's just understanding your body. I think it's a little bit of both. But Gannon's day where he seems to have that lull, he can still work through it. Guys like Ricky Wysocki, anyone that you see consistently at the top, and everyone's wondering what that reason is, like how we see these guys at the top all the time. That just seems to be this top 20 all the time. And I think it's the fact that they understand how to get through that lull better than the guy down here in
they adapt,
21st to 40th place. Yeah. They just adapt. Mm-hmm. And now you can have a bad weekend. That's fine. Okay, you're going to have that. Miss a cut, whatever. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is the consistency day in, week in, and you look at it over a longer period of time and not just a short like month or two. This is a long view of what I think Gannon's going to do. And I think the dominance we saw with Paul McBeth, I think you're going to see with Gannon now. I'm more convinced after what he did head-to-head with Ricky in the European Open after getting 2 OBs on that back nine and still manning through it, still gutting it,
He didn't let it get to him.
He didn't.
He kept persevering and pushing.
Yeah, and his drive on 18 to throw it to where he threw it was way more high risk than Ricky's, and he pulled it off, and he had a much easier shot up, pulled it off. It told me everything I wanted to know, and so he's got ice in his veins. Burr is perfect name for him. I mean, we got to get the ice. Somehow got to roll into Burr, right?
Right.
It's got to someone come up with a great nickname for that kid because he needs one.
This Mania should be doing better at marketing him. All the discs that they come out with is just like Chroma FD. Well, they finally did a cool one with this Horizon Cloudbreaker. They're doing a Halo Glow Cloudbreaker for him.
Okay.
Yep, those are on the way to the store here soon, hopefully.
Good. He deserves everything.
Yeah, so cooler discs like that for that young man who's really earned a quality Tour Series type disc.
Yeah. And now we're rolling into, and of course, Idlewild is today, tomorrow, and Sunday. That'll be great. I think Gannon could walk away with this. He's there because he won it last year.
Defending title, okay.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea. You want reps before you go in, just to make sure things are where you think they are, because that little...
Stay warm.
Stay warm.
Don't cool off with a vacation.
Right, or too many days off. You do want to rest. That's just a fine... Listening to your body. Ricky said it when he was here last week that you got to listen to your body. You got to rest it when it wants rest. You can push when you can push and that type of thing. But Gannon's 19 years old. He hasn't had to deal with that yet. That to me is the most interesting unknown with him is the injury part. When that kicks in, is it 5 years down the road? Is it a slip and a fall, a mistake when those guys are out goofing around? Is it one of those things?
Well, it could be anything.
And all of a sudden you tweak something and it changes everything.
Yeah,
so
you got to adapt to that.
They got to adapt to that. So most of the veterans in front of Gannon have all gone through that. And Gannon hasn't gone through the injury part that we know of yet. So that's going to be the unknown. But it takes an injury to stop this kid at this point, because I just don't see mentally where he's going to stumble.
He doesn't have any flaws yet. Super consistent with that mental game. Like you said, every time he's not satisfied. He's pushing.
Yeah.
Every shot's got to be better than the last.
Yeah.
That's really what keeps him in that winning circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we have... I think Paul's going to be really tough at Worlds. I think Ricky's going to be incredibly tough at Worlds. I think Gannon's going to be incredibly tough at Worlds. Those are my top three. Just watching the way Paul finished at Ledgestone, and he did that again in Europe. He took it right down to the wire in Estonia with Ricky. Yep. He's feeling it, quietly sort of feeling it.
Well, I think Macbeth has a very major focused tour about him.
I agree.
All these other tournaments in between the majors are just practice rounds for him.
100% agree.
He's focusing in on these 5-round tournaments where it takes a lot of stamina of 5 good rounds to keep it in contention.
Yeah.
So he's absolutely in the conversation for that. Ricky's absolutely in the conversation. Even with the injury, he's looking very, very good. He's composed himself. Even with the time off this week, it's not real time off. He's still staying focused. He's throwing 500 putts a day. He's getting his rotation in, and he's got a very, very good routine about him.
Yep.
So he's never out of the conversation. I like Jacob Semerad.
Jakob? Yes.
That kid's good, man. And he has had a very consistent year as well. I'm hoping to see him have a top finish.
I worry about his tee shots because he seems to be fairway to green. He seems to be as good as anyone. But his tee shots sometimes, we saw it in Europe, will go astray under the pressure.
That's right. You did see the pressure get to him.
A little bit. It was. He
hasn't been in that place quite a lot. He's been in the top 10 quite a lot this year, but he hasn't been in the winners bracket.
Yeah. Have you gone back and watched Jomez Pro, the European Open from this year?
I haven't watched the Jomez Pro.
Do yourselves a favor. Watch the final day, front and back. It's the best hour and a half of the day, and the reason being is the clarity of the shots, the position of the cameramen.
Love that.
And the view that you get of all the gallery is the biggest I've ever seen on tour, and it displays it amazingly well on Jomez. where you saw them during live coverage, but it wasn't because live is always moving. This is sort of staying with them more, right? So,
focusing in.
You see what they were dealing with and that energy that they were getting, and Ricky saying, that energy level was so high.
Yeah.
That Jomez Pro European Open is, even if you've seen it, it's well worth the coverage just to click it on and watch it.
You sold me. I'm going to watch it today.
Oh my God, it's fantastic. I couldn't believe it. I was showing someone else because I wanted them to see the galleries, and I was getting someone excited about disc golf, as I always do.
Yeah.
and it looked better than I thought it would. So they were really impressed with that. They had no idea. This is a person from California, and he was like, "Holy cow, this is amazing! This was from California. The guy invented this. The Whammo guy, and like the whole thing. He was hooked. He loved it." So it's interesting. I do think once we get more eyeballs on this, it'll continue to grow because athletes are interested in seeing something athletic like this, and I think the sport has more appeal personally than a lot of the sports we see even in the Olympics. Like, I'll never watch after the Olympics again.
Yeah.
I mean, I track and field, great, I get it. But on a week in, week out, no.
There's 200 different sports, and over half of them are very weird.
Yeah. Surfing I could watch every weekend. I think that's
pretty cool, but that's also luck of the draw on the wave, on the weather that day. I mean, it's kind of subjective.
I still think those surfers are the bravest human beings. I've been in waves before. I've surfed waves before when I lived in California, and when you get caught inside, what that means when the wave takes you out and you roll, you tumble.
You're in a washing machine.
You're holding your breath for a good 15 seconds, 30 seconds sometimes. It does scare you.
Yeah, if you didn't get a good breath before you go under, dude, it's tough.
That's not the worst part. The worst part is when you pop up in that foam and your head's up above the water, you're bored somewhere this way, and you look, and there's a wall of water in front of you that's about to crest. And you're going to go through the whole thing again. That's caught inside. And you're going to go through the whole thing again. Then you pop up, and then you see the next wave. You're screwed. You have to figure out a way to try and duck under it or just stay under it and swim out or ride with it and get back out of it.
Get away from the break.
It is insanely scary. And so I really respect surfers that way, but we digress.
Yeah. Back to disc golf.
Back to disc golf. Cannon's going to be so hard to beat the next 5 years. His mental game, everything else. The only unknown is, to summarize that, the only unknown is his, the injury aspect and how he plays through injury, because he hasn't had to deal with any of that yet. Not even fatigue, it seems.
Yeah.
He just seems to be able to go, the Energizer Bunny. But that's being 19. Gannon, it doesn't last that long. So enjoy the ride, man.
He's got a good mental game, and he's got really good mentors in the sport. He's hanging out with Isaac Robinson, Ezra Robinson. He hangs out with Rick quite a lot.
Gavin Babcock.
I don't see Gannon slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, those guys are all. It's a good group. It's a really good group. I like them a lot.
Well, the podcast is getting really close to 1 year. Did you know that?
No.
We're coming up on our 1 year anniversary.
Really?
I'm thinking we should do another giveaway, but something a little more unique. I'm thinking the winner would get around with the crew.
What crew? Who the hell wants to play with me? I thought you were going to say Ricky. What did Ricky say he was going to come back and play? That's amazing.
Ricky was definitely going to be in the deal. Me, you, and Rick, and then the winner of the giveaway could get around in with the crew. Hopefully Steven could be there too. Maybe we could do like a little double setup or something. That'd
be super fun. Go out to Fountain Hills, so if you're in the area, and then plan it in the winter.
Ooh, Fountain Hills.
Yeah.
That's magnificent.
Yeah, because I'm sure people that are outside the city or state that have seen the memorial would say Fountain Hills looks pretty cool. And it is.
It is a destination course, because it is one of the most scenic courses in the country.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Beautiful.
It's got some easy shots out there, but surprisingly, they're not as gettable as they look.
Well, look, as an amateur standing back, it's a really tough course. As a pro, it's super scoreable. Anybody that has 450 feet on a hyzer can shoot 16 down there.
Yeah, there's a couple of holes that go out on that peninsula, and we just watched them tee off, and it's almost a blind shot to that peninsula, and
that hole 9.
Hyzer's imperfect.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
How the heck do they do that?
They got it dialed, man. You got to measure your shots. The air is real thin out here, but it's usually windy, so that's really, really tough.
And if the fountain's on, it makes it windier.
That's right. The wind like pushes off.
Yeah.
It's really strange. It creates its own wind.
It's a fun place. So, yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
Just a little teaser announcement for our 1 year coming up. I believe it's in September, so it's crawling up quick, as everything else does.
I'll work on my game.
Yeah.
I'll be tough to beat.
I need to sharpen up too, man. I've sucked lately.
Okay.
Shot 5 over at Sarah Ann, was not happy about that.
Can I bring up Ledgestone and Garrett Gerthy?
Yeah.
Because I know everyone's talked about him. So
That spotter.
Here's my take on the spotter. He made a mistake, huge mistake. I think everyone's heard the story. But I also think Garrett, there's two ways to look at that, and I'm looking at it the other way. Garrett owes him a thank you.
You're trying to, glass is half full here.
Yes, glass is half full. Garrett was somewhere in the middle of the pack. Wasn't he at 40th or somewhere in there?
Something like that, yeah.
He was never really threatening to win. He was never really even threatening a top 10. But here we are talking about Garrett for almost 2.5 days and showing this video over and over and over again. Garrett's wearing his manufacturer's sponsored stuff.
Sponsors like to see him on camera.
In a normal setting, if he doesn't have that happen, Garrett goes without being seen that entire weekend. On his merit in play, we wouldn't have seen him.
He made the lead card.
And I'm a Garrett fan. I'm not picking on Garrett, but he needs to thank that guy because he ended up being like blasted all over the place. Garrett Gerthy.
Well, yeah, you flip the script and you do step back and look at the big picture. Like, wow, I was on camera a lot this week.
Yeah, Innova was all over the place with the advertisements and the other stuff that he has on his shirt.
Well, then you go with the likelihood of like interviews. You're going to get called in for more interviews.
Yeah.
You're going to get a potential of an OTB Skins match. I mean, your name's out there more, and you're more relevant.
It's not how you want to be getting your sponsorships name out there, but look, you're going to take what you can get, and I look at it from that point of view. It's terrible that it happened, but at the same time, it was the best thing that could have happened to Garrett that weekend for exposure.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, that was great.
I was really upset when I saw it, though. When I saw the guy get hit, because it was so bad. That was so embarrassing that he watched it the whole way. He would have done better if you didn't move at all.
Well, to me, what was weird is that he went towards it instead of away from it. That didn't make any sense to me because he was in the fairway and he was moving towards the out of bounds instead of moving into the fairway to where if it did hit him, it would be in the fairway. But he moved to out of bounds to where if it hit him, he's out of bounds. So, and you know what I mean? Because he was going more
was heading towards out to curl back in.
Yeah.
It was definitely going to curl back in.
And I thought he was going to, I think we all agree, he thought he was going to be cute and lift the leg. And of course he's going to say it wasn't what he was trying to do, but
he looked like an absolute div.
He totally misjudged it.
Hands behind your back, like you didn't even try to get out of the way.
He totally misjudged it, hit a root, popped straight up, over. And it was bad, but good for Gerthy. Everyone says bad for Gerthy. It was good for Gerthy.
It was a stroke for Gerthy.
Right? So that's my take on that, and I don't think I'm wrong. Because we wouldn't have heard of Garrett Gerthy the whole weekend. It would have just gone by.
Well, he made the lead card the first day. That's where he was relevant, right? He made the lead card. After that, he kind of fell off.
He was placement lead card day one?
Yeah, he shot like, what was it, 9 down or something.
Well, that's a
first
great round.
So he had a really good round to get onto the lead card. So he was on the lead card the second day.
Boy. Like I said, I'm a fan of Garrett. I want to see Garrett
He's a very likable guy.
In contention. Absolutely likable guy. Super sweet. Good game. Weird putt, but I love that.
And yeah, it's more individual characteristic, right?
Right? It's like Matty O. I want to see more guys that are doing weird stuff. That to me that's what makes the game so cool.
Yeah.
You're starting to get a little bit too robotic, and if you look at the PGA Tour now, it's hard to tell one swing from the other.
Yeah.
I mean, from the top in the world to the 50th in the world, their swings look pretty similar in almost every respect. And I think that takes away from the game because when I was coming up, you had Raymond Floyd who was doing weird stuff and Calvin Peete who had a broken arm and it never straightened out. So after the break, so he had this sort of bend and this arm needs to be straighter, but it had this bend in it, or it was actually this arm, was his left arm. And so when he took it back, it was always bent. But it made him so consistent, he was on the tour and he was winning money. It's a really cool story. If you don't know who Calvin Peete is, but things like that, I always thought brought more character to the sport. I just think it does.
It does, yeah.
And to see Matty O out there when we see him flicking that thing, man, it's super cool. And the way we see Simon putt, the way we see Jakob putt with that I mean, Jakob
spinny. Yeah.
Super spinny. I just think that is great. And the way Ricky pushes off, no one pushes off the back foot like Ricky in a putt.
He's got a really wild style, Rick.
And he was in here during Ledgestone. We had a watch party with him, and almost the length of the store, there's a basket in the back, and he's just flick, one after another making it. I'll put that up so you can see some of it.
With different
and he was
putters,
right here, and that's about a 40-footer, somewhere in there. And you'll just watch how easy it is to him to make a 40-footer. It's like nothing with his style. The way he pushes off, you can tell he's got another 50 feet in there if he really wants to.
The fact that he nose downs it too, so it's like really finishing down into the basket.
It comes in like this and aggressive.
Yeah. Little chance to spit out. It's so good.
It's really, really impressive. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of diversity like that. And you do see it in putting, and you still see it with a lot of the throws and guys like Wolf. But guys like Wolf have got to get more dimensions than just the tomahawk
Correct,
stuff.
yeah.
He'll never get close enough to pins to win, right?
More of a circus act. I mean, right. To even cash, really, you really need a well-rounded game against what you're looking at in the field. Everybody's got a forehand and a backhand and is good at putting.
Correct. You know who I think has the smoothest forehand is Klein.
Kyle Klein.
I love the way he stands up. He's very upright, and he just sort of flicks it.
He really is, yeah.
Just flicks it.
It looks very effortless.
You go back and watch some of his stuff in Estonia, it's the best forehand, the most effortless forehand out there.
Yeah. For
the distance he gets. I mean, there's a lot of good forehands, but his is effortless. And I think Paul's is good too.
I like Paul's because his is so long and smooth.
Yeah.
And it is very effortless the way he just swings his chest into it.
I know you don't follow a lot of YouTube disc golfer guys. I like watching stuff every now and then, but there's a coach out there, I forget his name, but they have a channel.
Is it the Spin Doctor?
No, not the Spin Doctor, but the Spin Doctor's amazing.
Yeah.
Love the Spin Doctor because
he's cool.
He gets right to the point.
Yeah. I like his style.
He pulls those videos down and he explains what we're all looking at, I think, very well. And he's right most of the time. I think he's right mechanically. But these are the other guys that they're out on the East Coast. I think they're out in the Virginia area where everyone seems to be. And he just did a 6-minute tutorial on the forehand. And what he's saying about the forehand, it isn't so much all of this, it's the position here.
Okay.
So it isn't putting your hand here when you're coming back. It's getting your hand here because when you rotate through, it puts it on plane. So when you see this face plate or the bottom of this plate back here, we always see that with like for sure with Macbeth when it's all up here like this.
Yeah.
And now he's an old baseball player, right? So it's natural to him. That's where it is. When you're throwing to first base, your hand's here when you're getting ready to chuck it.
I was always taught to keep it up too.
Yeah, and then as you turn and rotate, it gets into that pocket. And anyway, these guys do a great job of explaining that, and I'll try and put a connection to their video. He doesn't go into great depth, but he makes the point of that to here is better, and then keeping this arm up in front. So if this arm's loose down here, it can actually throw you off. The arm needs to sort of match the front.
Well, it definitely helps lining your shoulders up on the backhand
it's no
too.
Different.
Kind of focusing in on the timing of it.
Right. Yeah. Just to make sure that it's out of the way, it's going towards the direction that you want it to go.
That's brilliant.
You don't have your shoulders doing different things. But that made a lot of sense, and it feels way better on the shoulder in this position to me. And I've had some people tell me that, no, you should stay in this flat position the whole time. Well, it never feels right, ever. Does that feel right to me? It hurts. It puts that almost into a hyperextension a little bit here when it's back, so that the faceplate isn't up like this, but it's like this when it's back.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I think Hamas can pull that off better than most, but even you'll see most of the guys are somewhere in here at some point to get that position to get into this position.
Get through it.
So
Forehand's not my specialty.
We just
so I
lost.
don't have much to add.
we just lost everybody with that little segment. But I'll do a quick take on House of Discs. I thought we would see some real visibility in how that company structure was going to come together this year, because it's been a full year now with House of Discs. And maybe Castoplast would sort of have that vibe within the umbrella of the company, and Discmania has its vibe, and then the Trilogy has their vibe.
Right.
It seems like the Trilogy still has their vibe. Castoplast is just Castoplast, and Discmania is building because of the players.
Yeah.
Right?
They've got one of the best teams out there.
Not necessarily a lot of new discs, but they're introducing better plastics, better consistent plastics, but that's under the House of Discs umbrella. So we all know it's being made at the factory there at Latitude. So,
well, look, everything else that you've called about House of Discs has already happened. We've seen every step of the way. So you're calling something that's probably on the way.
If you roll up West Side, you roll up Latitude, and you roll up DD, it's equal to the size of not Infinite, but Innova in terms of discs.
Right? Yeah.
In terms of discs, Innova still actually has a little bit more, but it becomes very similar when you take those three companies, the Trilogy, and you look at them versus Innova. The number of discs are about the same. So running three separate companies, different marketing promotions or messages and all that sort of time that it takes to do those things. And now you have Castoplast, and now you have Discmania. Now you have 5 different marketing messages at the end of the day, or a vibe that you're trying to create. None of that as a business owner makes a lot of sense to me. I think what is still going to happen is that they'll streamline this.
It's going to narrow down.
It's probably going to narrow down. I would think Latitude's going to be the brand. I think DD will slide into another slot, or just meld into Latitude, and whatever cannibalizes, it'll be the top seller that survives.
Yep.
That type of thing. So 12-speed versus 12-speed, you know what I mean, with the same fade. And if the numbers are close,
quite a lot of duplication.
Yeah, if the numbers are close, chances are the one that hasn't sold the best will go away. So that to me is how those venture capital companies move forward with investments like this. They streamline things, they make them more profitable, they make the bottom line sexier, and then it's more attractive as a sale. I don't know that there is any benefit in chopping them all up and making them individual things doing different things that aren't competing against one another. That seems to me to be harder to do than to just put it into one funnel, right, where you're feeding it out. So the fact that we haven't really seen any clarity on that this year tells me that I think that's probably what they're figuring out still.
Yeah, they're on their way. They've made a lot of changes since moving in the first place.
Yeah. Now, Castoplast, if you're an owner and you have Castoplast sitting over here, and now those plastics are the same or similar to everything that's over here, are the molds that much unique that it makes sense to?
Some are, yes. You've got the Berg, which is one of the most unique discs out there. The Cax Z was one I was astounded to see go away, because I thought that was one of their best discs. The Rico is very similar to a Challenger, but not much similar in the Trilogy lineup.
Yeah.
Right. So the Rico fits, the Cax Z fits. I even think the Cax fits. The Stig is kind of a bit of a duplicate for the Maverick. I mean, there's definitely some overlap there.
Yeah, and that's, you know. So, what is your opinion? Do you think, would you keep it if there's overlap and the others are selling better?
I think they would be
as a business
smart.
Person?
I think they would be smart to create their Lexus and Toyota status. Castoplast can be their Lexus, their upscale, higher quality plastics. More attention to that, and then charge the extra buck for it. Whereas the other ones, the other companies, can just sort of be themselves. Just be what they've been for the last 10 years, 15 years. Discmania should be off-brand type Lexus. You know, it's still a higher quality still has a higher image about it. People have a higher opinion of Discmania, I feel like. They expect more out of them. I definitely expect more out of them when it comes to their plastics, and I've been really disappointed with all of the Gannon Bird discs that they've come out with. It's all just copy and paste. Put a rose on this one because he won in Oregon.
Right. So to compare it to golf, you have your major brands, Titleist and Ping and so on and so forth, right? But they're the major ones that are out there. But then you have these outliers, like a Castoplast, before they were purchased. And a couple of them are in Japan, and they're doing their own forging. And they come from other companies that did their own forging, like Mizuno as an example. Yeah. So a forged club is forged steel. It's softer, it's pliable. When you're hitting a golf ball at a high level, that feels a lot better than just some of the other metals that are available. So it's a little bit more expensive, and there's a look and a design at the top that varies. Everyone's eye is a little different on how you want to look down at your 7-iron, okay? And I see Castoplast, before they were bought, as sort of that outlier. That could be that sort of brand where people like myself will go to Japan, buy these custom golf clubs because they're sick and they look super cool, and I love the lines, and I know it's going to have everything that I need. And that's just sort of a thing. But when you get absorbed into a conglomerate like a venture capital investment group like this, and you're part of all of this, to me, I think you immediately lose that unless that company is starting to throw money at it to make it that. What you're talking about, this exclusive Lexus thing. But in the last year, we haven't seen anything that identifies it as they're trying to do that. We haven't seen any different marketing. I see more marketing from Clash than I do Castoplast. Why?
Because Clash that's what they're throwing their money at. And I'm sure the private equity firm has more money to throw at things to create it. But like you said, they're still figuring out their structure. They're at a pretty well ground level here. They've only owned the company for a year.
Yeah, but you don't buy a company unless you know what you want to do with it. So I'm a little surprised after a year that we haven't seen more clarity.
So you think they're slow moving?
I think they bit the apple and it wasn't what they thought.
Huh.
I do. I think they bit the apple and it wasn't what they thought. Now,
interesting.
I certainly don't believe that any of the previous owners of the other companies are still involved in any way, shape, or form. Now, they could be, but I don't think they are. So now you've taken away all of the history, the founders, the history, and what was driving it, and what they thought was important in making disc golfers love a brand, and they were doing very well with it, obviously. And now all that's gone, so it becomes this sort of cold, unidentifiable, except for Latitude, which sort of seems to have stayed the same. Now, Castoplast, after a year, I thought would have this sort of rise in marketing. We are this brand. Nothing. It's just sort of there. Not even, I don't see anything, unless you're a Castoplast lover, that if you don't know it's there, there's nothing around in anything I'm looking at that tells me it's there. Mm-hmm. And yet it's a part of this huge venture capital group. So what's up with that? So anyway,
we got 2 minutes till we got to open our doors.
Yeah. Well, that was all I was saying. I just think it's very interesting that.
No, that's an amazing take. I think that should.
Well, I don't know. Is it?
I think so. I think that's going to create some stir up in people's heads. Why are they not marketing Castoplast like the other companies? Because they are marketing Discmania quite a lot.
Right. Yeah, Discmania is holding its own, but you're not seeing a lot from Westside other than the signing of Matt Oram. What have you seen for Westside since? Right?
Nada.
Just business as usual stuff.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Great episode. See ya.
Bye, guys.